Hey guys, it's Bonnie. Today I am here to do a review and discussion for Allegiant, the movie. If you don't know, Allegiant is the third and final book in the Divergent series, but is the third and not final movie in the Divergent movie series. The first part is going to be a completely non-spoiler review, and the second part is going to be a spoiler discussion. First, we'll talk about non-spoilery stuff. So I didn't really have a lot of expectations for this movie. The first movie in this series, like Divergent, was a great film. Insurgent was awful. Especially with the trailers, I wasn't looking forward to Allegiant, and even though I wasn't looking forward to it and I didn't have high expectations, it still let me down. It was just such a bad movie. It wasn't only a bad adaptation, but it was a bad movie. It had this weird effect where it both felt like it was a movie about nothing and that it was boring, yet it also felt really rushed and not enough detail was put into it, if that makes any sense. The technology in this movie is just way too ridiculous. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about, like those bubble I'll get into it in the discussion. But the technology is just really weird. The setting looks like Mars. Like, was I watching The Martian? There's a lot of plot holes that did not make sense, and I don't know who wrote this and was like, oh, this is good, approved. It has such a great group of actors gathered. Like, you have Shailene Woodley, you have obviously Theo James, and the main cast, and then there's the supporting. You got Octavia Spencer, I believe it's Naomi Watts that plays Tobias's mother. It's just, you have this great cast, and it's like they gave them nothing to work with. Everything felt really emotionless and just it had this weird glaze where I was watching the movie, but I wasn't feeling anything, which is really not good. I've really loved Shailene and, everybody in the previous movies, but this one, there was this big thing was lacking, and I don't know what it was, but I wasn't enjoying myself. I mean, I wasn't hating it. I was there was funny parts that probably shouldn't even be funny were funny, but it was just missing any, I don't know, emotional appeal. Especially in a dystopian world, you should be making me feel something, and this movie really wasn't making me feel anything except why did I pay full price to see this when I could have waited until Tuesday and saw it for $5 instead of $9? Honestly, I don't even know what they were thinking with this movie. It didn't make sense. It changed a lot of the book. I don't remember the book that well because I've only read it once. I was not a fan of the book either. But I thought they were gonna make these changes that were gonna be so much better, but they weren't. I've only seen the Insurgent movie once, and so going into this, I was hoping for a little, hey, this is what happened last time reminder, or just something. Just kind of dove in. They talked about things without really explaining them. It was confusing, and I've read the books, and that's probably not good if I've read your source material and I still don't get what you're going with this. This movie overall, it was a mess. It made a lot less money than the movies that came before it, and I'm not surprised. I really do not think that this book needed to be split into two parts. They could have easily just wrapped this up in one movie. I know it's the thing to do, make more money, whatever, but take Mockingjay Part 1 and Part 2, for instance. Did they really need to happen? Did they need to split, the book? No, not really. But there was still things in Mockingjay Part 1 that kept you interested throughout the movie, even though it was kind of a setup, obviously, for the next movie. There was still, Jennifer Lawrence's great acting, so much emotional moments. There was stuff to be invested in. But in Allegiant, there was nothing. It was just entirely this big setup, and it didn't feel necessary at all. You could just skip this movie and watch the next one and probably be just as informed. So overall, I'd probably give this movie a D, honestly. I know a lot of people seem to love it, or at least like it, but I wasn't a fan. It was probably better than Insurgent. I don't know, because I don't remember Insurgent. I've only seen it once. I'm not going to torture myself again. It was just not good. And it's really sad because even though I wasn't a fan of the Allegiant book, it's still a book-to-movie adaptation, and you want those to do well and be good so that you can get more book-to-movie adaptations. Okay, but that is going to be it for my non-spoiler review. I'm going to get into my discussion. So if you haven't seen the movie yet and you don't want to be spoiled, click the X out of the video. See you later. Spoilery discussion, people. You have sat through this movie like I have. That or you're not going to sit through this movie and you don't care about being spoiled. Which in that case, probably the best idea. The movie starts out and where people are being put on trial for having worked with Janine. And it's all just weird, crazy ruckus thing, and we watch this scene where Four and Triss help Caleb escape, and they get their little gang together so that they can climb up over the wall. While they're on the wall, Tori dies, and it's the most unemotional thing that I've ever watched. The movie had been on for like, I don't know, 10 minutes maybe, and she was dead, and there was just nothing leading up to it, nothing emotional, there was like a little scene between Triss and Tori, but there was nothing there that like established that this was in a relationship that was important to Triss, and so it didn't seem like it mattered. Once they get over the wall, we start seeing some of this weird technology. The first thing is when they're like outrunning the guy, which was an interesting scene, although it was kind of funny watching like the truck go over those like Mars mountain things. It reminded me a lot of like a weird version of Mad Max. I don't know if anyone else is getting that vibe, but I did. They get the people from the Bureau that come and rescue them, and like they're put in these weird bubbles that was just so funny. I don't understand why they were necessary or who was like, hey, you know what's a good idea? Let's put them in these weird bubbles because of their contamination or something. Like there's toxins, I guess, or radiation or something in their skin, which really doesn't make sense because these soldiers are also like, they have like uniforms, but they didn't look like the kind of uniforms that would like keep out toxins or anything. And this little city thing that they ended up taking them didn't seem like it had like a wall to protect against these radioactive toxins or whatever. It didn't really make sense, like many things in this movie. Plot holes just all over the place. And the shower, the shower was such a weird scene. When she was encased in that thing and you had that shot of her face and she was just like, it was so funny. And I don't know why they left that in unless they were trying to be humorous. After they go in those weird showers and they get all clean, they watch this video that basically told them what happened to the world, like this thing that was introduced by science for people to take to get healthy and blah blah blah. The guy that plays David is narrating it. He's basically the President Snow of this world. However, all I could think during that scene was like the video that played before the Reaping in the first Hunger Games movie, with Snow narrating over it. War. Terrible war. I had flashbacks. It was like, it was the same thing. This whole movie, they talk about the Fringe, which is like place between Chicago and Bureau DNA looking, I don't know what it was called. I think that's what the Fringe is supposed to be anyway. I realized they didn't ever explain the Fringe, at least not that I know of. Triss in this entire movie is wearing white until she turns like against the people that they meet there at the Bureau, David and them. And I'm just like, is it necessary? Like, we get it. She's pure. She's undamaged. We don't need to see her in a stark white costume throughout the entire movie, but I mean, sure. The whole thing between Triss and Four was just really annoying. She so easily was like, yeah, David, you're right. And there was just, I don't know, it was weird about it. The way she like wasn't trusting Four after everything they've been through was just really annoying. And it didn't really make sense to me. There are also so many drones in this movie. That scene with Four and that one girl whose name I can't remember, when she was like teaching him how to use the drones and she's like, you control it with your left hand, and she starts like spinning her left hand. I don't know, it was just weird. Again, the technology in this movie was just really weird. Something else I want to touch on is how Christina was like a relevant to the max in this movie. They never used her for anything important. She was just kind of there. Like, at one point, her and Tris were going to have a conversation, and then they get interrupted. Basically, the entire movie was Tris having a conversation with someone, and then that conversation getting interrupted. I've kind of lost my place where I was in describing, like, the movie, but anyway, let's just skip to the end because the middle was pretty, I don't know, irrelevant. You just had Tris and Four on opposite sides, and the war is starting back in Chicago, which they really seem to downplay. Like, the war didn't feel like it was that big of a deal. It's just made the end all the more anticlimactic. Like, Tris finds out that David was lying. They go to, like, Providence or whatever that is. It wasn't really explained. She's like, oh, we have to go to Providence, and there's these other people there. I don't understand if the world is supposed to be destroyed or if there's supposed to be other people living in other places. I really can't tell. There was no really good description about that. So Tris, Christina, and Caleb, they all go back to Chicago, and they have to save the town, or the city, the town. They have to save the city from the memory gas, and they do that pretty darn easily, even though the gas is already leaking out everywhere, but no one is being affected by it, which was another ridiculous plot hole. I guess they're just trying to think that we assume that the gas has to be very concentrated in, like, a mask thing, like they did throughout the movie. First to the kids, which was a weird thing. Did that happen in the book? I don't think so. And then Evelyn did it to whatever Tobias's father's name was. Marcus, I think. You think it would have some kind of effect, like people would feel a little weird or something, but really nothing happened to anybody. They were fine. And Evelyn, thinking that the memory gas was only going to affect the Allegiant, Joanna's people, that was just so ridiculous. Like, what did she think? It was only going to be let off in a certain area, like in the old Amity compounds? During the scene where Tris is trying to cut off the memory gas to try to find a way, she had been talking with Caleb through, like, an earpiece or something, and David cuts that off so that they can't talk to each other, and so Caleb has to, you know, go to where they are and tell Tris how to turn it off. And he says that's what family is for, which is something that she says to him after she broke him out of jail. And it's just like, that's so not the same thing. Like, all you did was go to the place where they all already were to tell her how to save the city. Whereas she broke many rules getting you out of jail and then took you and escaped. Like, that is not the same thing at all. So the movie ends with Tris stopping the memory gas and all is good, and she's like doing this thing to the city of Chicago, like, oh, we were an experiment, but yo, not anymore. We're gonna stand up against these people. And yeah, I don't really know where they're going with the next movie, because I'm pretty sure events in this one affected the book very much. Also, one more thing before I go. Okay, Chicago, there's a wall, but there is not a dome. So how did it stop, like, all the radiation and all that weird red rain and stuff that is happening outside of it? How did that just suddenly stop at one point and then it's like all grassy and green in Chicago again? That didn't make any sense to me. But like I said, this movie makes no sense. Okay, I think that is about all I have to say. I was just not a fan of this movie. I'm sorry. If you liked it, I guess let me know why down in the comments. I mean, the fight scenes were good. It was funny. Funny in places that shouldn't even be funny, but it was funny. But other than that, that's pretty much all I liked about it. I really don't know how the next one, was it even called? Allegiant? No, this is Allegiant. I don't remember, but we'll see how this wraps up in summer 2017. I believe it's scheduled to come out. So I'll be back talking about it then, but until now, I hope you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts of the movie down below, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.